Because of time limits, this is going to be the last question. I'm going to pick a question from the audience here. We haven't yet talked about higher education. And this question from one of the audience members asks, it says, the cost of a university education in Connecticut is anywhere from $120,000 to $250,000 over 4 years. Many students and their families cannot afford this. What can be done? And we will start with Mr. Marsh.
I think I might question those figures to start with. And I was up at UConn late last week having the same discussion with some of the students in their media program up there. First of all, I don't think the state of Connecticut has anything to apologize for the cost of their education and the quality that is received. Whether you're going to the community college system, the state college system, or UConn main campus, you're getting an excellent quality education. As a state, we can have an open and honest argument or discussion on how much we want to subsidize that education. If we're looking to keep our young people here, if we're looking to build a base of well-qualified, capable workforce, then maybe we need to put subsidizing our state university system further up the chain. The other point that I make is you don't have to go to UConn or the state university system to get started. We can do a much better job of incorporating our community college systems into an education. Your degree is going to come out at the same way, but you can get an excellent start at a very reasonable price within our community colleges and move it up through the system that way. So I kind of disagree with the premise that it costs, I think it was $125,000. I'm not sure that, I have 3 kids. I have one graduated, one in college right now, and one I hope that's going to go to college next year. And I understand the costs and the pressures, but I know when I'm checking out the marketplace, I'm very impressed with the reputations our state college and university system has, as well as the costs that are associated with. But it is a legitimate question to raise on where we want to put subsidizing or improving that level of education within our entire state budget framework.
Mr. Foley?
Yeah, listen, we used to subsidize a lot more of our higher education costs than we do today, but we still are ahead of many states. I think UConn, for example, just transitioned past tuition covering more than 50% of the cost. But many states, and I believe California is one of them, only subsidizes 10 to 15% of its university system costs. So we're still doing better than a lot of states, but it is expensive, and yet we want people, particularly people who can't, for whom it's a financial burden, to be able to get a college education. So what can we do? We have to do more with less. It's the same thing we have to do with all our government and our school system. I get really upset when I hear about pensions of exceeding $300,000 in some case at UConn. Now, listen, I've got nothing against people who worked a long time and having a comfortable pension, but the state of Connecticut simply can't afford a pension of that magnitude for some of the people coming out of UConn. So we need better control in the governor's office and the executive branch of costs that are incurred at UConn and our other higher education institutions. There really is no single person or no single entity that has enough cost control to lower the costs and make sure, without lowering the quality of educations we're offering in our higher education system. As governor, I would look very carefully at how we could do that and initiate steps both in the organizational hierarchy to make sure costs can be controlled, and then making sure we have people leading that who can get our costs down.
Mr. Malloy?
In June, Nancy Wyman and I published a 17-page paper on educational reform and what our administration would attempt to do. We spoke about education from a preschool basis all the way through graduate programs. It's the only candidate's proposal with respect to education that contains that. I want to be very clear that I'm disappointed with respect to the cost for the middle class of our state educational system. We passed the threshold this past year where the subsidy of education is now less than the parents' contribution of education. We've come a long way since my brother Brian went to Central at $50 a credit. And I'm not sure that that's been particularly good for our middle class. For instance, in 1990, Connecticut tied with Massachusetts as having the most young people go to college and graduate from college. And in those intervening 2 decades, we've dropped to 7th place. I believe, in a large part, that's because we failed to keep pace with the middle class's need for economic support as they sought to send their children to school. But there's also a bigger problem that we have to address. Right now, 40% of the students leaving high school in Connecticut and going to the state university system or community colleges have to spend a portion of their money and a portion of their time in remedial courses in English and math. We need to do a better job making sure that our students are ready. We need to subsidize the middle class's participation in the education of the state. I'll tell you why. Because we know that there's $1 million difference in the average earnings between a person who goes to college and graduates and a person who does not. That's why in the proposal that we put out in June, we call for 4 of the 12 community colleges moving in the direction of granting 4-year degrees. And when I say moving, I mean rapidly moving. We've got to make a college experience available with a 4-year degree at the end available to all of our students in Connecticut.